Hello, I am Sean D. Francis, and I'm here today to walk you through the Campaign Builder Workbook. This is the final video in the Campaign Builder Workbook video series where I have gone through step by step of every aspect of the Campaign Builder Workbook and built a campaign setting from scratch. You witnessed it on video as it was happening. We are now dealing with the final tab on that Campaign Builder Workbook. It is the detailing the campaign story arcs and the plot lines for all the adventure hooks that we have defined at the village, the region, and the country level. I went ahead and did most of the creative work off camera just because this does take a little bit more time. It's not something that you can do spur of the moment. And watching me noodle through different themes and different plot ideas is not exciting content. And fundamentally, I understand watching somebody fill out a spreadsheet is not the highlight of anybody's day. But I did want to give people who are using the campaign workbook something that they could reflect on, an idea of how this workbook is meant to be used, the shortcomings of this workbook. It is not a world building tool. It is one aspect of world building. This is something in which now you can start building your world around. From this, you can start generating maps and filling out details about the NPCs, fleshing out the world for the player characters and where they fit into the scheme of all this. Right now, we're just going to go through the adventure plot lines, and basically this is to demonstrate what I mean by a plot line. We're not creating the adventure, we're creating the essence of what is happening in the adventure. We're not revealing twists, we're not revealing the effect on the greater world. It is really 1 to 3 sentences to help you write the adventure later on. I got asked once, what is the ID for? And that's because I have a lot of hubris in this kind of stuff. And I always think that I'm going to publish these adventures. And so these would be the adventure IDs. I don't know if it has any value to you at all. You could ignore it. One of the ways I do use it is I do all my adventure building in Google Documents. I have an adventure template, and then this just goes into the adventure template. And then I can actually use it in other adventures to reference, like, oh, this was an event that occurred in BLAC 01. I don't have to do the full adventure title. It's just a quick ID kind of thing. Just let me have that, okay? So here we have, this is from the Village tab, the Adventure Hook, Dangerous Forest. And what we want here is what is the adventure of the Dangerous Forest? And what we have is a malevolent individual is controlling the wolves to attack the village of Black Rock Keep. We don't know why. We don't know what the motivations are, but you now know that there is a single entity out there controlling wolves and maybe summoning wolves. Maybe these are not natural wolves. Maybe these are dire wolves. Maybe these are just magical wolves. Maybe these are magically summoned wolves. Maybe maybe the person controlling the wolves is a werewolf. And there's werewolf kind of stuff going on there within the village, that sort of thing. That's something that gets sorted out when you're actually writing the adventure. This just gives you a sense of the nugget of the adventure, that this is the big bad of this adventure is this malevolent individual. Understanding the motives and why all this is happening, that's a separate concern while you're writing the adventure. Plot summary for the Fae Circle. This is simple. The Fae of the forest have kidnapped a child of the village. So, adventurers, heroes, head off into the forest to recover the kidnapped child. Very straightforward adventure. Obviously, I would put a twist on that. I'm going to put a little hint on this. The child is a changeling. The child is actually of the Fae. And the original kidnapping occurred by the villagers of the Fae, and the Fae were just recovering the child. I love twisting the moral dilemmas like that. Plot summary for the caverns. Nest of harpies are threatening the livestock of the village. We don't know why. We don't know why they moved into this region. We don't know if there's anything else going on there, but this is a threat that needs to be taken care of. And what's nifty is they're a flying threat. And at first, second, third level, the player characters will not have access to anything that allows them to fly, most likely. And that is an interesting challenge that they're going to have to deal with. So we have this weird fourth adventure. We didn't detail anything. It is the tie-in plot summary. These are the adventures that help move the player characters from one tier of play to another tier of play. And in general, I like having these as PC backstory adventures. So the PCs obviously have a story behind them, why they're adventuring. And these tie-in plot summaries, like they visited this village for a reason, and now the culmination of that reason is this fourth adventure. So then we move on to the tier 2 adventure plotlines, and these are the adventure hooks that we outlined in the regional tab. And the ancient ruins, these are the dwarven temple ruins. And I'm going to say that the hammer of Thotherum, the Forgebane, needs to be recovered. And the plot summary of the Dragon Den, Casarex has emerged from hibernation and threatens the region, stealing valuable treasures. So we have already developing a theme on the tier 2 adventure plot lines of recovering items. And when I was doing the off-camera work for this all kind of fell together, and I think you may enjoy what's going to happen. Oh, why is that? P70. Sorry, doing some corrections on the, make sure everything else is correct. So the plot summary for the monastery. Very simple is Baron Rothgar wants the Book of Prophecy stored at the monastery, recovered for some reason. But while there, a murder of a monastic leader threatens the mission. So I'm specifically mentioning, like, the Book of Prophecy is something we've not talked about in the campaign creation, but I was thinking what could be stored at the monastery. I didn't want a weapon stored there. So went with knowledge, scrolls, books, that sort of thing. And while we were talking about the country, developing the country and the monarch, we have a monarch who is insecure about sitting on the throne. And Baron Hrothgar is that monarch's friend. And Baron Hrothgar may know that this Book of Prophecy has something that may make the king, the monarch, feel better, may feel secure about being on the throne and the leadership. So they need that Book of Prophecy to give to the king. And that then leads us to this tie-in, which is to deliver the book, the hammer, and the stolen MacGuffin that the dragon took to the monarch. Now, obviously, carrying these items, they're going to be waylaid. There's just the delivering, just that entire journey is an adventure that can be detailed out. And that moves us into the tier 3 adventure plot lines. Now, I said this earlier, but I just want to clarify. I said this in one of the earlier videos. I'm not saying that there's only 3 to 4 adventures per tier of play. These are just the main adventures that you know that you are detailing within your campaign setting to start. You're going to fill in other adventures into the gaps between these things. The PCs have backstories that are going to have adventures attached to it. Sometimes you'll be able to attach the adventures to these adventures, these adventure summaries that we have developed. But sometimes you can't, and that's going to be a solo adventure off to the side. But these are things to think about, and to realize that this is not a complete campaign of adventures, but these are pillars. These are tentpole adventures that you will have detailed out, that you know you can run with very little preparation, because you've already outlined things. You already have an understanding of how they fit into your campaign. So tier 3, these are your PCs at this point are much more powerful. They're countrywide heroes, or at least regional heroes becoming countrywide heroes. So their first adventure is the Abandoned Village. And so while investigating an abandoned village, the PCs uncover a dark plot by an evil necromancer. Are there non-evil necromancers? Feels redundant to say evil necromancer. The dungeon. Okay, this took some thought of, like, what is going on with this dungeon. But after deciphering a scroll found in the dragon hoard of this adventure, the PCs discover the site of the location, gosh darn it, of the Hall of Tethril, an earth elemental domain. And the mysterious glow, and a lot of investigating going on. But my thought here at this, they're like the kingdom is suffering a famine. There's a military threat. They need their soldiers doing soldiery things, and that's exactly what you use adventurers for. Is there's something crazy out there? Send in the troubleshooters. Send in the people who can handle the crazy weirdness, and those are the adventurers. So while investigating mysterious glow, the PCs find a site of magical cataclysm. Magical burst, which unleashed the magical burst, warping and changing creatures. So my thought here is this is where you can insert all like owlbears and mongrel men and all the weird magical experimental creatures are in and around this area. But the cataclysm threatens the land if not fixed. So just like imagine like an oil well that is just burning and it's on fire and spewing, and it's causing all sorts of devastation, and it needs to be fixed, and it's a magical version of that. And the PCs, once they discover this, they're gonna have to fight through all these crazy chimeras and different types of creatures, discover that, oh, this is what's happened, and then need to go and collect resources to fix it and stop it to protect the land. So the tie-in plot summary is, and this is a tie-in to the main campaign arc. It definitely should be, well, as we define the main campaign arc, you'll be able to seed in the different campaign arc stuff. But this is going to be the kind of the main thing that brings the campaign to a conclusion, at least the main campaign story arc to a conclusion. So after discovering the cause of the cataclysm, PCs must recruit a villainous assassin to thwart the plans of a high cleric and high mage who are working with an agent, Zixer, to rule the land. So as I was going through all of this, I was like, okay, who is the big bad? And I already kind of said the rival of the monarch was this Count Cordry from the city of Zixer. And then I'm like, oh, we already defined that one of the rivals of one of the NPCs was a high mage. Another rival was a high cleric. We have a NPC who is fighting the corruption within one of the dominant religion of the land. So what if these three individuals are working towards a ignoble goal of controlling the land? So what does the big bad want? Count Cordry wants to rule the greater land, which, if you remember back in the campaign survey, the greater land is the continental area. So it's kind of like saying somebody wants to rule Europe. why does the big bad want this? And this is where I'm like, I didn't want simple motives. I didn't just want for the power, because that's pretty darn boring. I'm going to say that at one point in time, Count Cordry was promised to wed Geraint's sister, which would have made him the ruler of Illustra, or ruling with sister. But the sister found out that Count Cordry was not a good person, and basically denied the wedding. So Count Cordry sought revenge, kidnapping and killing the sister, which led to the Geraint coming to the throne. And then, because Count Cordry no longer had a legitimate way to become leader, he had to come up with a different way. So it's still just a power grab, but there's now nuance and different methodology attached to it. So what is preventing the big bad from accomplishing it? Well, it's a bigger deal. It's he's got to coordinate resources. He needs the help of the High Cleric and High Mage in the land. And I'm already thinking, like, well, what are the High Cleric and High Mage doing? This little cabal is behind the famine. So they're manipulating weather, they're rotting crops in the field, they're disrupting anything that could actually be feeding people. So they're trying to weaken the kingdom from inside using these methodologies. But they're also doing this against Palantir as well. Maybe not as directly. Maybe it's a carryover. Maybe Palantir isn't a direct goal right now. And just the magic being used is so powerful that it's affecting Palantir, and that has driven Palantir to take on additional action and fight for whatever food and resources it can by leading raids against Illustra. So this then leads us that the city of Zixer, at least an agent of the city of Zixer, is kind of behind all the problems. A little trite, I admit, but we can now start inserting all sorts of references to this activity. Like the Fae, why are the Fae so active? Well, maybe this magic that the High Cleric and High Mage are using are driving out the Fae. Maybe it's the magic that awokened the dragon. There's all sorts of things that could be behind the magic. Maybe they're in cahoots with the earth elementals to further weaken the kingdom. And we know that they're definitely doing something with this magical experimentation that caused the cataclysm that needed to be fixed. So we have all these elements that are going on, and they all don't have to tie back to this main story arc. You just tie back the big threads, the threads that you definitely know you want to tie back. It's okay for there to be solo adventures. It's okay for there to be loose threads. That is interesting. It's okay to have threads that aren't completely tied up. Those create annoyances for the players of like, but wait, isn't that connected somehow? You're like, maybe, maybe not. That's where they get to fill in the gaps for themselves, and I will tell you, they will often come up with something a heck of a lot more interesting than you do. As we create a campaign setting, we get constricted by our own thoughts. So listen to what the players are saying, and that's what I like about the flexibility of this Campaign Builder Workbook. Is it allows you to change things, switch things up, insert NPCs that you weren't thinking about before into plot lines that they now seem very relevant to. There are NPCs that we developed in the campaign setting that we don't do a lot with. Jillian Hunt is a great example of somebody I wish I could do a little bit more with, but didn't really fall into place. But as the PCs and the players interact with these elements of your campaign, maybe suddenly she becomes pertinent to the greater story. I'm already thinking like maybe this is me just riffing now. Maybe the sister lost her memory and the sister is Jillian Hunt. That would be way coincidental, tied up a little bit too tightly. But why not? That's good soap opera. That's good drama that allows for an interesting denouement of she doesn't want to be on the throne now and hands it off to her little brother. Or maybe the little brother is like, oh, thank God you're back. I never wanted to be ruler. Here's the throne. You get to decide. That's the glory of it. Or ideally, let the players decide. Let them how they suss it out of what they consider to be a happy ending. That's the best way of doing it. So this finishes up. This is the 10th video. We have completed the campaign workbook, all the tabs, all the information. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you found value in this. If you did, please like one of these videos of the 10 videos, just so I get a sense of, okay, this was worthwhile doing. What I will do now is offer this campaign setting up on my blog at SeanDFrancis.com. Actually, that'll probably be at StygianLabyrinth.com. That's where I'll be putting the more publishable elements. I'm also, as I finish this, I was thinking I would love to actually write out these adventures, craft these adventures into something, and then I was like, let's make this a full campaign setting. So I'll do a map of the campaign setting. I will write up the adventures. I will also create 6 first level PCs that can insert into this campaign setting with their backstories and how they relate to things, and that'll tie it all together and maybe give you some ideas of how you can start your players' PCs into this world, or you can just hand them these PCs to start off, and at least within the starting village, start your first D&D campaign. So if you want to connect, if you want to share information with me, if you have questions about the Campaign Builder Workbook or questions about your own campaign, want to bounce ideas off somebody, I would love that. I'm at Sean D. Francis on Twitter, and you can email me, Sean@SeanDFrancis.com. And of course, you can always leave a comment on this video. So enjoy.